the Soviet Union completes a full retreat from Afghanistan. After 10 years, billions of dollars in arms and support from the US, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia, and 1.5 million Afghan lives, the war is over.
Afghan was very happy to celebrate the withdrawal of the Soviet Union. Men and women was thinking that now we will be having very good Afghanistan.
Foreign volunteers like Osama bin Laden returned to their home countries as Islamic war heroes.
Afghanistan has tremendous resonance throughout the Islamic world as a victory of Islam over the West, Islam over the godless Soviets, and it was really a history-making event.
In the United States, longtime CIA officers like Milt Bearden and Michael Scheuer celebrate one of the greatest accomplishments of their professional lives.
It was probably the most successful covert action program in the history of the United States government.
The Soviet Union would never recover from the losses it sustained in Afghanistan. Communism itself would soon collapse in Russia and all over the globe.
The beneficiaries of the Afghan war were actually going to be 300 million people in East Central Europe and ultimately in the old Soviet Union.
In the end, the Afghans' great sacrifices seemed to benefit everyone but Afghans themselves. Many are left poor, homeless, or orphaned. Wounded men like Mullah Muhammad Omar return to their villages, only hoping to live out the rest of their lives in peace. But the violence doesn't end with the Soviet withdrawal. The end of one war in Afghanistan will only be the beginning of another. By 1989, the holy warriors who helped Afghanistan drive out the Soviet Union are embracing new causes. Osama bin Laden returns to his home in Saudi Arabia and uses his stature as a war hero to rally Islamic militants throughout the world. In Afghanistan, Mullah Muhammad Omar resumes his religious studies in a madrasa in Kandahar. Meanwhile, other prominent Afghan war veterans vie for political control of the new Afghanistan. Rival Mujahideen factions were united as long as they were fighting the Soviets. But now, the factions splinter and rush toward the capital of Kabul, each hoping to seize power for themselves.
When we came to Kabul, Mujahideen became involved in fighting among themselves.
The Mujahideen leaders can't agree to form a new government. Each commander wants to govern his own territory autonomously. Eventually, they turn their guns on each other, and Afghanistan erupts into full-fledged civil war. The Mujahideen trade devastating rocket attacks in Kabul, Afghanistan's most densely populated city. This young Afghan boy remembers the day a stray piece of ordnance changed his life forever.
When I was 8, a rocket hit our house. I was injured. Some days later, I found out that my brother was killed.
Mujahideen fighting kills almost 10,000 Afghan civilians in 1993. As the civil war continues, America's Afghan embassy remains closed, a powerful symbol of waning U.S. interest.
Afghans became very disappointed when we saw that those friends that they were sending us money, stingers, all those sophisticated weapons, they stopped. Even they stopped humanitarian assistances to Afghans.
Washington lost interest. They simply no longer considered that a big deal.
By 1994, the violence in Kabul has spread through the rest of the country, where no government means no law and order. Organized crime fills the security void, and Afghanistan becomes a leading global exporter of heroin. Opium poppies are easily grown here, and easily smuggled out across the lawless Pakistani border. This black market for weapons also flourishes. The most powerful of the Mujahideen commanders use their military networks to control this lucrative guns and drugs business. These former war heroes now stake out turf like glorified street thugs.
Afghanistan was divided into 5 different power centers. The Afghans at that time used to say that you need 5 visas to travel within the country.
In the areas under their control, these Mujahideen warlords take whatever they want with no repercussions: bribes, property, and land. Mullah Zaif recalls how helpless he felt watching the local commander abuse people at will.
It was a very bad situation, and all the people, they were seeking for someone to rise and to fight with these people and to bring security to Afghanistan.
Afghan anger reaches a breaking point when a local Mujahideen commander in Kandahar kidnaps 2 teenage girls. At the commander's military camp, the girls are repeatedly raped. Looking for justice, the villagers of Zinasgar province turn to the local mullah, a one-eyed veteran of the Afghan-Soviet War, Muhammad Omar. Omar has never been a man to run from responsibility. At a young age, he lost his father and had to learn to provide for his peasant family. Omar spent his teenage years wandering from village to village, offering religious instruction in exchange for shelter and food. When the war with the Soviets came, Omar answered the call. His courage in battle was legendary. Now, Omar only wants to quietly return to his Islamic studies. But when the local commander dishonors these 2 girls and their families, the one-eyed mullah is ready to stand up and fight. Omar enlists the help of 30 Islamic students, the Taliban.
I will tell you why I was joined with the Taliban. We have responsibility to protect the people and to protect the area.
Armed with just 16 rifles, Mullah Omar leads his vigilante group in an attack on the warlord's base.
They commandeered a tank and ran over at least the bottom extremities of this warlord.
After freeing the girls, Omar and his followers hang the commander's dead body from the barrel of the tank.
That is what the beginning of Taliban.
This was the chosen of Mullah Muhammad Omar.
Soon after, Mullah Omar has a vision.
The Holy Prophet Muhammad coming into his dreams and telling him to pick up the gun and fight the Mujahideen, and that he's going to establish his rule all over the country.
In the months ahead, the Taliban will make Omar's dreams a reality. It's the early 1990s, and Afghanistan is a failed state riddled with drugs, rampant crime, and warlordism. But stories circulate about a one-eyed mullah bringing hope to the people of Kandahar. Muhammad Omar never asked to lead the Taliban movement. He believes he was simply chosen by God. Omar has a series of mystical visions that convince him to stand up and fight the Mujahideen, responsible for Afghanistan's ruinous civil war. Omar's rise from local mullah to national prominence happens almost overnight, according to a rare few who know the Taliban leader.
Nobody could imagine that this unknown fellow, poor fellow, he didn't have even a proper home. How come this person is going to defeat the Mujahideen who were armed with tanks and aircraft?
At the beginning, he had only 2 or 3